This is Open to Hope Radio, featuring Dr. Gloria Horsley and her daughter, Dr. Heidi Horsley, coming to you on behalf of the Open to Hope Foundation, dedicated to those who are looking for hope after loss. Now, here's Dr. Gloria.
Welcome to the Open to Hope Show. I'm your host, Dr. Gloria Horsley, with my co-host and daughter,
Dr. Heidi Horsley.
This show is brought to you by the Open to Hope Foundation in partnership with the Compassionate Friends. We are going to talk today a little bit about continuing bonds after the death of a stepfather.
The person we are interviewing today is named Brittany Trauthwein, and Brittany specializes in grief and loss and end-of-life matters. Her research was influenced by her own grief journey after the loss of a stepfather. She studies how individuals continue bonds with loved ones who have passed, particularly adult children remaining in relationship with deceased parents. Welcome to the show, Brittany.
Hi, thanks so much.
It's great to have you on now. This is really different for us because it's not often we talk about step-parents, and that's a little bit ridiculous because there are so many families that have different kinds of family structures, and step-parents are certainly very important. Now, how old were you when your stepdad died?
I was 22 when he passed away, and he had been part of my life since around the age of 6.
Mm-hmm. So you were really close to him.
I was, yeah. And I think that you're right. Step-parents often do get overlooked when talking about loss, and it can often be a disenfranchised type of loss.
Mm-hmm.
It was a sudden death. He was 45 and passed away of a heart attack unexpectedly.
I love that you've done this, and I don't know what your experience was like when you said that you wanted to write it. I'd be curious about that. What did your committee say?
I actually met with probably 4 or 5 potential chairs before I actually found someone who was able and willing to take my topic on, for very similar reasons as yours, the concern that it was too close to me, and also the concern that because I wanted to do this qualitatively and have people tell me their stories, that it actually might be too damaging for the other participants to be part of. I was, however, lucky to find a chair who was very open to my topic and didn't really want to change it in any way, and felt that because I was so passionate would actually contribute to the research.
I find that so fascinating because, as my mom and I know, talking about it isn't damaging. It's usually the opposite. When we talk when we tell our story and we talk about it, it's so healing.
What does that mean to people? What does it mean to continue bonds?
So continuing bonds is really the idea that when someone close to you has passed away, that rather than letting go of the relationship, that you really, the emphasis of grief and mourning, that process should be on how to negotiate and renegotiate, kind of meaning over time. So we don't want to let a relationship go and try to move on in the world and just try to forget about the person, but actually finding a place for them. It's a concept that came around in the late 90s, but it really is just now kind of, I feel, taking hold where people are more open to this idea. And there's still people who are a little fearful of, well, are we denying the death? Is it unhealthy to do this? And really what I've seen from people who I've interviewed is that it's quite opposite, that it actually is very healthy and kind of helps them make meaning of the loss in a way that actually helps them move on in their lives.
Now, how did they continue those bonds? What did you find?
So there was a number of ways that kind of across the board, I had 4 participants, and the reason there was only 4 is because, like I said, it was a qualitative phenomenological study, so 2-hour in-depth interviews with them. And the themes that all 4 people shared, a big one was that agency played a role in continuing the relationship. So really it was their choice when to start this relationship with the person they lost and how to start it. And in many ways, the surviving individual would kind of work this out with the person that had passed in the sense of thinking, well, would this matter to my father or would this matter to my mother and actually represent our relationship? One example I can give of that from one of my participants was that at his funeral, it was a very formal funeral. She was 21 when her father passed away, and she decided to wear a concert T-shirt that her father had got her when they went to a show together. Her father was a very informal man, very laid back, and she felt like that was her way of kind of representing the relationship and the fun that they had had while he was alive. And she felt that was the start of her continued relationship that day at the funeral.
It's not something as simple as wearing something that would be representative of that relationship.
Do you remember the woman, we had a woman on our show whose daughter died by suicide in the Army, and she used to wear her daughter's Army boots around on her birthday. Yeah.
Absolutely. That's a great example. Another one is really wanting to be like the person that passed away. So really taking on characteristics that maybe they see in themselves and living those out. So knowing that when they tell a joke that is something maybe the parent would have told, that they're then kind of living out who the parent was in their life and that influence they had on them.
Now, this is really interesting because some people would think that's weird. You know, if you're being like them or saying a joke like them or whatever, you must be, get over it. But you're saying it's normal.
Mm-hmm. Except, Mom, right. And I can say, I think that people do that anyway, because I think that when Scott died and when other people die in our lives, there's a void. And people go in and fill it. And I think of Scott's death. How did we fill it? I kept the family name. I was very into my academics. Rebecca named her oldest after Scott. Heather was athletic. We all went in and filled certain roles that he had. And I mean, I think that that's kind of reminds me of that. I mean, and there's certain roles that can't be filled, but we did things that we wouldn't have done had he not died.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. I think people do it all the time, and they don't even realize kind of that they're falling into that. But then when you put a name on it, like you said, once we label it, that's when people start to think, well, maybe that is weird, but really we're doing it kind of naturally.
Right.
One of the examples with that is I had a participant who she said that, when I would be in school joking around, keeping humor just to stay alive and get through the day, things like that are my dad. And she went on to say how that was how he dealt with stressful situations. And she knew that she had learned kind of that coping skill or that way of dealing with difficult times from him and could kind of see him living out through her.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Another huge one, and I know this is kind of another one of those terms that's come around, is the linking object, that sense of connection through a concrete item. So perhaps wearing, a wedding ring of a parent who passed away, or a T-shirt, or just something tangible that you can have on you, or even having, your mother's antiques in your house after she died, being able to look at those and know that they not only link, to the relationship, but they link to when she bought them and what those meant to her and now what they mean to you in the present.
I know somebody who kept their husband's car. What I like about what you're talking about, the continuing bonds, the linking objects, is it normalizes it. It makes us think, okay, this is okay, and what things are there? And, what am I doing? So,
and what can I be doing if I'm not doing anything?
Yeah, exactly, because you feel a little out of control after a loss, and these things can help you ground and be in control, thinking of these kind of terms.
Well, and often you'll hear, especially after like a spouse death, for instance, I need to get that garage cleaned out. I need to get rid of the clothes in the closet. I'm holding on to these things. And there's this idea that it's, it's not good or that we're holding on to the grief. But really, who is kind of giving us that idea that we need to be getting rid of these items that connect us to that person?
Mm-hmm.
I think that experience is so unique, the timing of it when someone is ready or feels that that's what they need to do versus kind of what society tells us we need to be doing with people's things once they pass.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and sometimes society can tell us to get rid of them too soon. And I mean, once they're gone, they're gone. And I helped a lot of the 9/11 families with this because I worked with them for 10 years. If you're not sure what to do and you're feeling overwhelmed by it all, put things away in a closet temporarily and in bins and revisit it later on when you're in a different place. And then you can figure out if you want to get rid of it or not. And so Brittany, did you do some of these things after your stepfather died?
Absolutely. I definitely, with the linking objects, I have his wedding ring with him and my mom, and she gave me that to wear on a chain. So I wear that quite frequently, especially around anniversaries such as his birthday. But when he first passed, I wore it almost every day for the first couple years, just to feel closer to him. Memory boxes is another big one as far as continuing bonds that I have also done, where you kind of create a memory box that doesn't just represent the person, but the relationship, so things you did together or music that reminds you of that person once they've passed. I have a box I created, and often on the anniversary of his death, I'll take time to go through it, pulling out cards he gave me or pictures of the two of us, just to kind of go through those memories on that day.
I like that.
I'll also cook foods he used to make me when I was sick. He made me a grilled peanut butter and jelly sandwich, and often I'll crave that when I have a cold.
I love that. I didn't know you could grill peanut butter and jelly.
Just little things. And I also talk to him. I feel as I'm finishing graduate school, coming upon my graduation, I've already thought, I'm going to get up that morning and say, this is because of your continued support of me, and kind of tell him I know he's there. For me, that's an important part of how I continue relationships, is kind of update him on what he may not be right next to me while I'm doing, but that I feel he can kind of still see me in my process.
I love that, Brittany. When I was doing my doctoral dissertation on the sudden death of a sibling, I took my brother's picture and I taped it to my computer so that he could be my guiding light, and I could look at him when I, didn't want to do my dissertation anymore and go, okay, Heidi, keep going. You're doing this in tribute and memory of your brother. So I like that.
This work you're doing is amazing on the continuing bonds. It's great that you're normalizing this for people, because we do talk to them and we do write to them and all these things go on. But I think people don't, like to talk about it because people don't understand. So I think giving it kind of a label of continuing bonds is a good thing.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. And I think it just gives way for people to do what maybe they already are doing or craving to do, and just feel not judged by it, and realize that this is just part of kind of how we continue that relationship, and that when someone physically passes, that doesn't change the years we had with them or the relationship that will just continue based on what we had with them.
Thanks, Brittany, for all the work you're doing on continuing bonds. I'm sure that your stepfather would be very proud of you.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Well, thanks for listening to the Open to Hope show today. And again, I want to remind you that we are partnering with the Compassionate Friends, and you can visit us on our Facebook page and Twitter. We like to say to people, if you've lost hope, please lean on ours till you find your own. And God bless.
You've been listening to Open to Hope Radio, hosted by Drs. Gloria and Heidi Horsley. Like today's edition, all of our past programs are available on demand at opentohope.com, along with helpful articles, videos, resources, and links to help get you through the toughest time of your life. You can also follow us on Facebook and Twitter and sign up for our monthly newsletter. Again, that's opentohope.com. Check it out today. Then be sure to stop by next Thursday at 9 a.m. Pacific Time, when we'll be posting another edition of Open to Hope Radio. Remember, others have been where you are. They made it through, and you can too, as long as you're open to hope.